Hi there, I'm Kevin Turner from Spanish River High School in Boca Raton, Florida, and this is topic 7.4, Women and Economic Development. So what are we going to learn in this particular AP Daily video? So this topic is all about how development is especially important when we consider the changing roles of women. So we have a lot of statistics, and I know Ms. Cosgrove talked to you about things like Human Development Index, and she talked about the Gender Inequality Index. So in this topic, we want to really examine the rates and how they are related to each other. Are they similar or dissimilar? Because in many parts of the world, gender inequality still remains a bit of a barrier to development. Things are getting better, but if you look at this chart, for example, you can see that France, Canada, Argentina, Kenya, China have been selected because, we got a wide range of countries there. We have some European countries, we have African countries, Latin American countries, Asian countries. And look at what's happening here in terms of income being very different, right? In the left-hand column. Human Development Index, remember that's health, wealth, education in that middle column. And certainly we can see a variation. Some are very high. Remember, closer to 1 is a great number there. But then look at gender inequality, which is maternal reproductive health. Maternal mortality is one of those indicators. Adolescent birth rate is one of those indicators. Empowerment, education, government participation, labor, workforce participation. You see how Canada is almost the exact same number for both. That's really good. And then when you go down, look at Argentina, for example. There's a wide disparity between their Human Development Index number and their Gender Inequality Index number. And the same thing for China, which might be surprising to some people, how much of a disparity there is between the status for women and then the overall HDI for the country. So let's take a look at an example. On a recent AP exam, there was a question that used this graphic. And anytime you have a stimulus-based question, right, it's very important to see if you can figure out what's going on in that stimulus. So we've got gender inequality index scores, which we just talked about. And we know that generally speaking, right, Europe, the United States, Canada, Japan, Australia, those numbers are going to be higher, closer to 1. So when we have this gender inequality number, look at Sub-Saharan Africa, look at South Asia, certainly even in Latin America, Eastern Europe, Southeast Asia, some of these regions, you see that gender inequality is not quite there yet. So when you look at this question, what they were asking kids to try and determine is how these numbers fit into the bigger picture, right? And using scale of analysis. So one thing that has been used lately as a strategy for improving the standard of living, particularly for women, is this idea of microfinance or microloans. These are generally from not banks. They're from NGOs, non-governmental organizations. They're from private sources of money. They can be from charitable organizations. And what's going to happen is that this money, and it's often small amounts. I mean, comparatively speaking for Americans, a couple $100s, which in the developing world, that's a life-changing amount of money. And especially the money gets directly transmitted into the hands of women in small places, rural villages, and they're able to then invest that money in themselves. It's capacity building. They can start businesses. They can employ their family members and neighbors, and all women lift each other up in that sense, right? So women are very credit worthy. They're very honest with that money, usually more so than men would be. But there can be some issues because, of course, it is taking on debt. And if the business venture doesn't work, sometimes it can create debt cycles. So like any strategy, there are going to be the positives and the negatives, but it's important for us to realize that this is a way that we're able to, like I said, leverage opportunities for women. So let's practice a few questions. Right? Outsourced industrial production in less developed countries often relies on female labor because. So we look at our answer choices here. What do we know? We've talked about the education of women, and we've talked about development opportunities. Well, look at our answer choices. The agriculture unit that you did a couple of AP dailies ago, women do a lot of work in agriculture in developing countries as well. Wage rates for women are much lower for men. We know that's true, right? Women are more skilled. Again, think about the inequalities that we've talked about. Social taboos preventing women from working, right? Women are not protected by international labor laws. When you think about all these answer choices and the distractors, the really obvious one that jumps out is B, right? That employers are seeking low wage laborers, particularly in an industrial setting. And oftentimes women are able to do that work and they are paid less. So similar to this question, you look at this one, right? Which of the following arguments helps explain why 75% of those that are employed in export processing zones, and remember that key term, maquiladoras, right? The factories in Mexico that take advantage of cheaper labor. Well, again, you've got four things you have to kind of juggle there. So what can we say we know is true? Women are paid less than men. So you look at your answer choices. I know I got to see that the number 2 is in my answer. So if I see something that doesn't even have the number 2, what am I going to do? I got to get rid of that. So, A's out, right? Because we know that paying less than men has to be part of our answer. Women have better educational qualifications than men. We generally know that that's not going to be true yet. Again, things are getting better. Lots more girls are going to school than ever before. But I don't know that we're going to say that's better. So we can get rid of one for sure, right? Or of A. And therefore, we've got B has 2, C has 2, D has 3 different answers, right? And E has all of the answers. Well, we can get rid of A because we know one's not going to be part of it, right? So now we've already helped ourselves, right, with this question. Then you look and say, many employers consider women to be more dexterous than men. You know what ambidextrous means? It means you can use both hands. So women are dexterous than men. And what that means is women are better at doing intricate types jobs. That's probably true. Yeah, I would say, I'm kind of ham-handed. And then it says many employers consider women to be more likely to organize unions. Well, the employer wouldn't want that because then they're going to get better benefits and better pay and all that. That wouldn't necessarily be good for the employer. It would be great for the employees. So now we can eliminate anything that has the number 4 in it. Well, there we go. Let's look at our answer, right? We know that women are going to get paid less than men and that the women are going to be more dexterous than the men. Now, in terms of an FRQ, a little bit of a longer response, the free response question. I lifted a few parts of an FRQ here. A couple of years ago, there was one that said explain 2 different reasons for each of the following changes that typically occur as a country develops over time. Remember, at the very beginning of this slideshow, we were talking about how development and gender development are related to each other. So what I want to focus on is the number 3 there with you, improvements in women's social status as a country develops over time. So what do we know? Development results in a number of economic and social changes, right? Remember, we think about ESPN, economic, social, cultural, political, environmental. So we can say that women's social status is going to get better. We know that they're going to have employment opportunities. We know that the roles in the home are going to change between the partners, right? We know that women's healthcare will improve, family planning, TFR will drop. We know that women will have more access to political roles, whether that's voting or whether that's actually holding office, which we know is part of that gender equality index number, the empowerment level. We know that there will be demographic changes, right? Because she'll get married later in life, have fewer kids, right? Those are all going to be great things for status of women. And look at the last part there. And this is where it ties back together. We talked about microloans. We talked about microcredit. And there's that option that you could have talked about as well. All right. Remember, all of these topics and skills that we talk about in these AP Daily videos are going to be actionable things that you can use on your AP exam. Okay, so what should we take away? All over the world, things are getting better. I think it's very common that we always kind of see and hear about the doom and the gloom, and bad news is always the news that gets the most attention. But the reality is that in almost every single country in the world, education for girls is improving. In many cases, even in poorer countries, female education is now getting to be close on par with male education, right? It used to be that, in elementary education, girls were relatively equal, but by secondary, the boys went way more. That's not quite so true anymore. It's getting better for girls, right? Employment opportunities are increasing. Their pay is increasing. This is better for their family. It's better for the community. It drives the economy. TFR is falling, all right? All over the world, the 2-child family is becoming more and more the norm, all right? And that's important. Traditional gender roles are changing, right? The patriarchal society is not quite so entrenched as it was just a generation or two ago. Now, I'm not here to tell you that everything is perfect. I'm not here to tell you that there aren't any opportunities for improvement, but I can tell you things are getting better. Thanks for watching AP Daily. We'll be